The new Nintendo 3DS. It seems like everyone I talk to never seems to remember this device. It was the successor to Nintendo's 3DS lineup and was planned to be the future of the popular handheld. In a turn of events, it came to be the last and final entry in Nintendo's 3DS line with a lifespan similar to the Wii U. How did Nintendo plan to support the new 3DS with their next flagship console being announced so quickly after its launch? Nintendo would claim to be in support, but the lack of games catalog and declining sales would say otherwise. Let's get into it. Nintendo has been dominating the handheld sector for as long as I can remember. All the way back to the Game Boy, I can't recall any other handheld coming close to competing. Sony's PSP had a good run in the 7th generation, but was nowhere close to Nintendo's 7th generation handheld, the Nintendo DS, which still nearly doubled the lifetime sales of the PSP. And I don't think the N-Gage is making a comeback anytime soon. Following the success of the DS, Nintendo released the 3DS in 2011. In addition to being able to play DS games, the handheld's biggest addition was stereoscopic 3D functionality viewing without any glasses, faster processor, and better graphics. Nintendo, as usual, was revolutionizing the game industry with 3D graphics that was very impressive, although a bit awkward as you had to hold the 3DS in the perfect condition to get the 3D to line up perfectly. The device had a slider to adjust the intensity of the 3D functionality. Nintendo also introduced Street Pass, which allowed users to exchange data from games and applications if you happened to walk by another 3DS owner. Street Pass would unlock new features in games that you already owned, and were unique depending on the game. Nintendo released a few iterations of the 3DS, including the larger screened 3DS XL, or LL in Japan, in 2012, and the 2DS in 2013, which took away the foldable factor and the stereoscopic 3D functionality. Overall, the 3DS was a great upgrade to the prior model, and Nintendo would provide a powerful library of games to support its lifecycle. Fast forward to 2014, Nintendo announced the next entry in the 3DS series, the new Nintendo 3DS. The updated handheld came with a few upgrades. Super Stable 3D was a new sensor that was added to improve the 3D functionality by detecting where your face was at and could adjust the angle of the effects accordingly. This sensor also allowed for automatic brightness adjustment depending on the current lighting of the room you were in. The new devices also took micro SD cards instead of standard SD cards. The new 3DS was slightly larger than its predecessor overall and moved the power button, stylus holder, and game card slot to the bottom of the device. Nintendo added a smaller C-style analog stick similar to what players could get by attaching a Circle Pad Pro accessory to the previous 3DS model. Internally, there were some big changes with additional processors added. The RAM was increased to 256 megabytes, and near-field communication support for amiibos was included. The new 3DS could still play DS and 3DS games, and even use the same charger as the 3DS. The updated hardware provided improvements to some existing 3DS games by speeding up load times and improving graphics. There was even a Super Nintendo Virtual Console where players could access and purchase Super Nintendo games to play. Nintendo also planned exclusive games for the new 3DS that could only run on its boosted hardware. A standard size model and XL model were available at launch. The standard model had swappable faceplates to allow a user to customize their device, and Nintendo had 38 different variants available at launch. The new Nintendo 3DS launched the standard size and the LL, aka XL in other regions, in Japan on October 14, 2014. The first release outside of Japan was actually Australia and New Zealand a few weeks later on November 21, 2014. Europe got their first taste of the new 3DS in a white standard model through an ambassador bundle available only to Club Nintendo members on January 6, 2015. Europe and North America got their retail release on January 14, 2015. However, North America only received the XL model at launch. Both regions did also get some special edition themed The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask 3D and Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate models at launch. Reception for the handhelds were pretty good. Japan saw 230,000 units sold in its first 2 days, while Europe and North America had about 335,000 units sold in the first 2 weeks. Reviews were mostly positive as critics praised the updates to the 3D functionality as well as the updates to the controls such as the C-stick and the rearranged buttons. Another plus was the upgraded hardware, with some of the current 3DS games receiving slight upgrades on loading times as well as a better menu experience. Not to mention the plan for exclusive games to be released that would be dependent on the upgraded hardware, even though none of these games were available at launch. Add in the customizable faceplates for the standard model and the ability to play all previous DS and 3DS games, the new 3DS seemed like a small but decent upgrade. However, not everything was perfect. One of the major complaints in North America was the region lacked a standard size model at launch. Nintendo of America's Damon Baker gave a statement to Nintendo Life on the subject, stating that Nintendo's reasoning was that they wanted to give a clear message to consumers with different price points and make it easy to pick up with fewer models. Many felt like Nintendo was saying it would be too confusing having so many models. Interesting. One theory was that the North America market had sold many more 3DS XL models compared to the standard unit, so they figured they might as well only carry the XL as it might follow the same path in terms of sales. North America would eventually get a few special edition bundles for the standard size handheld for Pokémon, Animal Crossing, and Super Mario, but there was never a standard retail release. Another strange implementation was the fact that the handheld didn't come with an AC adapter. Nintendo released a statement saying that the AC adapter was removed in order to reduce costs for consumers. While this isn't the first time Nintendo has shipped a handheld without a charger, this was the first handheld in North America to be released this way. This now meant that if it was your first DS, you would now have the burden of purchasing a separate charger. Not to mention if you had one of the prior models with the hopes of trading it in, most retailers required the trade-in to include the charging cable. Another gripe was the microSD card. The slot to insert the card was located behind the backplate, which required a small screwdriver to unlock and wasn't the most user-friendly. This leads to the next issue users complained about: data transfer. With the new 3DS taking a smaller microSD card, you couldn't just pop in your standard SD card from your prior 3DS. The system did have a way of transferring data over Wi-Fi, but it was pretty slow. Although not the most practical, you could always transfer the files by connecting the cards to a PC and doing it manually. So overall, the new 3DS had some quality upgrades with the hardware and controls. While the purchase was a no-brainer to someone that didn't have a 3DS yet, at the time it may not have been enough for an existing 3DS owner to upgrade. However, if the future of the 3DS lineup were to become exclusive to the new handheld and its boosted hardware, this might be a necessary purchase in the near future. Xenoblade Chronicles 3D was released shortly after the new 3DS launch in April 2015 to showcase the handheld's power. This was also the first game that could only be played exclusively on the new 3DS. I, like many others, had decided to get the upgrade. I had owned a first generation 3DS, so I figured if I could get a bigger screen and the hardware needed for future games, it would be a win-win. Didn't work out like that. On October 16, 2016, 2 years after the launch of the new Nintendo 3DS, Nintendo unveiled their next console, the Nintendo Switch. Again, Nintendo changed the gaming industry by having a dockable handheld hybrid that allows you to play your games at home on the television and have the ability to remove the tablet from the console to take your games on the go. I was a little concerned having just got my new 3DS a few months prior. But surely Nintendo would still support the new 3DS for a few more years, right? In January 2017, about 2 months before the launch of the Switch, Nintendo's then president Reggie Fils-Aimé held an interview with Wired where he was asked about the future of the 3DS. Reggie responded by stating that the 3DS has a long life ahead of it, with a number of big games coming, and that they're going to coexist just fine. This looked to be the case as in July 2017, Nintendo released the new 2DS XL, same features as the new 3DS XL, but lacked the stereoscopic 3D. However, in the exact same month, Nintendo would announce that they would be discontinuing the production of the standard-sized new 3DS. Okay, but what about the games? Let's take a look at the games released exclusively for the new 3DS. Between the initial launch of the new 3DS and the Switch announcement, Nintendo only released one major exclusive title for the new 3DS, Xenoblade Chronicles 3D. There were a few localized eShop releases, as well as some Super Nintendo games through the SNES Virtual Console, but over the course of the new 3DS lifespan, only 3 major exclusives released in all regions: Xenoblade Chronicles 3D, Fire Emblem Warriors, and a Minecraft port. Other than those 3, a total of 11 games would be exclusive to the new 3DS. So what changed? Switch sales were exploding and Nintendo would see huge decreases in 3DS hardware sales, but would still claim that they plan to support the 3DS and Switch side by side. In 2018, during Nintendo's mid-fiscal year financial update, Nintendo President Shuntaro Furukawa updated the status of the 3DS by stating that the handheld is lightweight, price-friendly, and highly portable. Even though it is a niche market compared to the Switch, the 3DS also serves as a first contact between Nintendo and its consumers, and for this reason we will keep the business going. Furukawa also stated that Nintendo was planning for new titles for the 3DS family, however none of these would be exclusive to the new 3DS. Nintendo would double down on their support for the 3DS in their next financial update wrapping up the fiscal year. Furukawa stated, "While the Nintendo 3DS market has contracted faster than we anticipated, currently many consumers who purchase Nintendo 3DS are consumers purchasing Nintendo 3DS as their first game system. Demand still remains from parents looking to purchase a first game system for their children. That is why our basic policy is to proceed with both Nintendo Switch and Nintendo 3DS in our dedicated video game platform business." As far as the lack of games, I can understand developers seeing the drop in 3DS sales, causing them to divert their attention from the older handheld and focus on the hugely popular successor, as well as Nintendo wanting to put priority on their newest flagship console. But if Nintendo wanted to continue sales of the new 3DS, why not make an effort to publish more games? Or if that wasn't the case, why be so keen on continuously claiming your support for the 3DS at all? Nintendo would stop all production of the 3DS in 2020. Searching for the new 3DS on the US Nintendo site today only brings up replacement batteries and a Minecraft Direct download. The Switch outsold the lifetime sales of the 3DS family in late 2020, solidifying its demise. Checking the Nintendo financial section of their site shows you just how much the Switch has currently outsold the 3DS. So is a new 3DS worth picking up today if you can find one? I don't think so. With only a handful of exclusive games and the slight upgrade to some existing 3DS titles, the updated hardware really isn't worth it. Also, with the 3DS family being discontinued, you're only going to be able to find used models from a third-party seller or an extremely overpriced new one, so if you can find one cheaper than a standard 3DS, go for it. Otherwise, try to snag a standard 3DS. The 3DS family overall provided multiple fantastic games and consoles over its 9-year lifespan. You can still find some 3DS games in-store and from online retailers if you're lucky. Unfortunately, the 3DS eShop is scheduled to shut down in March 2023, so only physical and previously purchased digital content will be playable after that. I'm still unsure why the new 3DS was released. With it only being 2 years behind the Switch, I'm sure Nintendo was already developing and planning the Switch, and that they stated multiple times that they intended to support both devices. But it felt like the decision was made to focus on the Switch as soon as it was announced. Sadly, this also feels like the end of dedicated handheld gaming. Nintendo was really the first company to put so much effort and dedication into handhelds, so it's only fitting that they be the last ones to have the last successful lineup. Technically, there's still the Switch Lite, but I would consider that an extension of the Switch family, rather than an individual handheld with its own library of games. And while we can argue whether or not the 3DS was the best handheld, we can all agree that the worst handheld is the smartphone.
Do you guys not have phones?
Yeah.
Did you own a new 3DS? Did you even know it existed? Let us know in the comments down below. And if you haven't yet, check out some of our other videos. Until then, happy gaming.